All right. The objective of this lecture is to teach you how to test the difference between means using a t-ratio. And I'd like you to please refer to section 7.9 of Revel for the calculations and the steps. For now, I want to let you know that we use a t-test when the population standard deviation sigma is unknown. And when we're testing for differences between the means, we have n minus 2 degrees of freedom when n equals the number of total cases in the study. And so as an application of this technique, I might want to know whether or not males and females differ on some outcome. Or I might want to know whether or not individuals that have training differ from individuals who don't have training. In both cases, I'm testing the difference between groups of people. Now, when I'm estimating the standard error, this is, again, in section 7.9, and it lists the full steps. I need to combine the sample variances, okay? And there are two techniques for this. If your two samples have the same variances, or at least equivalent variances, then this equation here is appropriate. But if your variances are unequal, then you have to use a different equation to correct for that. And those examples, again, are listed in 7.69, and it's very useful to work through the examples. Once we have the denominator that we need, okay, for our t-ratio, I simply take the average of group 1 and subtract the average of group 2 and divide by the standard error of the difference between the two means. And then, with that, whatever the result of that t-ratio is, okay, remember that this is a t distribution with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. Whatever the result of this division is what I plot along this axis. And remember that I'm going to be comparing it against critical regions, okay, as defined by my critical values of the t-distribution. And the reason that I solve this equation is because I need to place this point somewhere along here. So depending on what the result of our individual equations are, what we're doing is we're plotting that t-ratio along an axis. Now, just some friendly advice. You really do need to work through some examples in the textbook and read this section carefully so that by the time you need to apply this technique for the quiz and for the homework, that you'll have had some practice.